I hope you're not bored. So we're leaving the best for the last, right? Who's Generation X over here? Raise your hands. 60s, 70s, 80s. So we all watched The Matrix in 1999, right? You remember that movie? When it all started, we were probably just out of university, right? And we thought at that time this was coming true, right? Machines and robots are taking our jobs. It's here again. Trouble is back, right? And this is a debate that's been on for the past, hot topic for the past few months. I've got a panel here of people that come from diversified businesses, all HR practitioners that have really worked over the past 20 plus years, gone through many changes in the workforce and in the work market. And we're here to really see their perspectives. What's going to happen? This debate is something really hot. I'll start with Zainab. Where do you see this going? I mean, with all the mess that's happening, with all the worry that's happening in the workforce, people are worried. We need to be more empathetic, ensure that we be more proactive. What's Alarabia doing? What is your organization doing in this context now?
I think it's very important today to understand what is happening. As you mentioned, these things has happened before, right? With this overthinking, the machines will come out. What's the changes going to happen? What is the new jobs going to be look like? All of that questions is being raised before. But we have to be more clever nowadays and understand what's happening from the past, helping us today to understand the future and anticipate the future. I always say, Mr. Najib, always the future is hidden in our present. We have to look like and find out what is actually the solutions between our hands. All of that is give us more possibilities to work on and to work maybe hands by hands with the technology. We as a human working with the technology, making that more harmonized as we actually have been through all of the discussions and sessions, the great sessions that we have during the day. All of that emphasize on the things of harmonizing this relationship. The most important part for me today, I would love to say, the integrative gap is very important, but that is going to be built by the human, creating by the human. So the human actually, it's supporting that, the machines in their growth somehow.
Great, great, great. Ben, I'll move off to you. While the technology is taking a leap in the workplace and employees are expecting us as employers, right, to focus more on their well-being and offer a work environment which is based on care and trust. And I loved what I just heard from Carmen a while ago. How can we as employers focus on this well-being, continue to provide the value proposition that we do right now with all the technology disruption that is happening?
So it's easy to think that when we offer technology to people that we're keeping them at arm's length, right? That we're keeping distance from them, that we're keeping them from having a relationship with us. But what's interesting is we actually see in our research, we did a big study last year on frontline workers. So if you have workers who have to be physically present to do their job, right? Any of those types of people, whether it's healthcare, it's retail, it's all these different industries. One of the key things that we found in that is that those workers, when their employers give them access to technologies, when they give them access to tools and software to manage their work life, they don't just appreciate that in the moment and feel like they're more productive. They say, I'm more likely to stay in my job. I'm more likely to feel like my company respects and appreciates me. Right? They treat me well when they give me these tools to help manage the things I have to do at work. And so the first thing I think of is this conversation is really easy to say, well, it's either this or it's that. And as you said, it's not about these two things. It's about there's a median point there where we need to find the balance between, yes, let's let the tools do what they're great at, but then let's find the thing that we are great at as humans and try to find the best of both of those, because I think that's going to lead to the best outcomes for us, for our careers as talent leaders, as HR leaders, as business leaders, but also for the people that we're serving in the workforce.
Great, great. We all hear that deploying artificial intelligence will reap its benefits on the short term, right? Some others think that this is a long-term thing. Rohit, where do you see that going?
The short answer to that is, it is a long-term thing at the end of the day. Think of it this way. When we talk about artificial intelligence, it's not something that is up and running as of today to the extent that we can just plug and play it simply, right? It is to go through a series of evolution. And in the current state of evolution that it is in, take the example of ChatGPT. How many of us are familiar with that? Have you used it? Have you enjoyed using it? Right?
Have you paid their subscription, $22?
I'll give you an example. So there's an integrative element which is going to come into the work life from an AI perspective. Think of it this scenario, and this is a scenario which I was narrating to my colleagues earlier today. So I have a colleague, right? Extremely amazing tech brain, but when it comes to simply communicating the message across, finds it tough. Right? Wants to get into the technical aspects of step differentiation, job evaluation, know-how, problem-solving, accountability, you name it. So has issues and wastes a lot of time drafting those emails. And it goes like, when I send those out, by the time I get the appraisal or the review, I'm grilled and I'm exhausted. So I just go like, well, why don't you create a prompt on ChatGPT and see what happens? The guy did that. Did it a prompt on ChatGPT. Next thing you know, writes it as an email, sends it across, gets an approval within the next 15 minutes. So the beauty is, and this is just one small example, the beauty is that we are going through an evolution where we need to realize that there are ways that we can use it smarter to get the most out of it. There are few tasks which we find extremely exhausting. For example, pouring through books. What do? You Google for it. Similarly, it needs to be integrated in your work life. Till date, you don't sit with calculators and have an argument that Excel sheets are not required. Now you've moved away from Excel sheets, hopefully. You see, this is a journey. And I think what we need to start talking more about is how do we integrate that into our work more, rather than asking, is it here to stay? Yes, it is.
It is. Is it entering our lives as well, our personal lives? I'll give you an example. One of my colleagues yesterday, it was Valentine's. He sits there. He wanted to send his wife a poem. She's on a business trip. So we were laughing at him yesterday. He entered, he put, send something to my wife. And she was happy, wasn't she, Kamel? Very happy. So my other question to you, Sajeev, is where does this all fall even on our personal lives? So forget work, forget the workplace. Where are we going to? Where's it taking us? And you, a tech-savvy guy, and an advocate of technology, where is it taking us?
Just like Rohit said, there is no turning back now. We are into it. Whether we like it or not, we are into it. Now, the only one way, like I remember one quote from Stephen Hawking, who is considered to be the father of modern physics. He said, the way AI is growing, it'll actually put an end to the human race. And then the next sentence he said, the only one way to come out of it is by optimizing your own brain. So because the AI is actually being resulted from human brain. It doesn't come from anywhere else. So anything and everything, whatever we can do to optimize, enhance the capacities of our own brain. Brain, when I say brain, it has to be part of your body also. It is not just, you cannot only work on brain. So your entire physiology and also the way you can actually enhance the capabilities of your brain. I think especially as human resource experts, this is something on which we all should be focused on. How I can get the best out of each and every individual. And for that, how I can utilize technology. Not just technology, even there are so many different factors which actually is contributing to the enhancement of the, the capabilities or the potential of the brain. So I would rather say when it comes to normal personal life, not just in professional life, in personal life also, people are facing this challenge. People are finding it difficult, especially with our next generation. We are finding it very difficult to match with them. The kind of speed at which they are working right now, I think they're all born with a new software, the upgraded version. They're already built in, like the new mobile phones come with upgraded version. So they come with the upgraded version. So if you give them a smartphone, they know what to do with it. You don't have to train them. So there has been some gaps and we are finding it difficult. So the only one way we can do is we optimize our brains and do whatever it takes to do that. And there are many techniques, generally I call it as biohacking techniques. So there are many techniques which we can apply, and using the power of technology, what is in store, even for incentivizing people, employees, for staying healthy. That's one of the things what I do in our company. We are actually developing programs to incentivizing people to stay healthy. So these are some of the things what we can do in the personal and professional life. So this is a new world order. Let's live this, this new wonderful life.
Lovely. If I take the other dimension of what we would really want to instill in organizations, which is culture, right? Maan, we were just having a chat a while ago, me and you, and you're an advocate of culture and instilling values, right? And upskilling people the way it is. How will artificial intelligence really get into the culture, the baseline of culture, support us as practitioners to really maintain what we really want, coming from different backgrounds, right? Let's go to Saudi Arabia, for example. The leap it is doing today, but really continue to maintain Saudi culture within organizations. Where do you see this going?
First, I would like to assure everyone that robots are not going to take our jobs. Artificial intelligence are not going to take our job. In fact, I would see the future work are more human. If we redefined the partnership between human and machine, to make it more win-win, more practical, more super friendly, so we can get the best out of it. Culture, I always say culture is the king, and this is something very important regardless of what ages we are in. But creating a human-centered culture where people come first, that's something very important to make a successful transformations. The pandemic has changed a lot in every single one of us and has impacted our economic in all sectors of the economy. So people, they came out with things like uncertainty, like which is effective organization culture, building a high performance culture across organizations. So as an HR practitioner, we need to reimagine the future work, or we reimagine work in general beyond the concept, when are we going to back to normal? Khalas, back to normal, this is not anymore, We need to reprogram our mindset to think different with the great Steve Jobs advice, always that is continuous. So think different in a way, think forward. So building an integrated culture between the machine and artificial intelligence, that's something, a key success factor for our future.
Excellent. It's coexistence, guys, right? We need to coexist with the machines. Ben, please.
I'm just going to add something really quickly on that. So I have heard for years that when AI, when automation, when those things start entering the space of HR, it's going to change our work. We're going to focus on more strategic things. And again, I'm a researcher. I'm a little bit of a, I want to prove that. So we actually did an experiment on this. And if you're going to measure your culture, to your point, right, many of us would do satisfaction surveys or engagement surveys with our employees, right? We'd ask them how they're feeling, what they need from us. So we did a survey of 1,000 workers, and we gave that data set to 3 different consulting firms and said, okay, tell us what's going on with our people. Tell us how they feel about work. and they came back with things like, oh, 70% of them are disengaged, or 40% have a problem with their manager, but that's as deep as they were able to get. They weren't able to tell us anything more actionable or more specific that we could take action on. We then took that same data set and passed it through an algorithm, and it could tell us, hey, for your sales team who's based in this city, here are their top 3 issues that are preventing them from being productive, versus right, the workers in this other area of the business, this other function, this other right, demographic. And what excites me about that is the algorithms and the tools can help us be smarter, more action-oriented, more focused on the areas where we can make an impact, but they're not going to make that impact for us. They may help us pinpoint that, and then they'll say, okay, people like you, it's time to step in, it's time to step up and take action and solve that problem. So that's where I see kind of this fun blend of things. It's, again, the best of that. I don't want to look through 1,000 survey responses and find the answer. I have lots better things to do, right? And those things come to guiding the culture, leading the teams, building the talent. That's the things that we care about, we're really good at, and the algorithms can't do that on our behalf.
Rohit, you had something to say. I see the idea coming out.
Like you rightly said, it's an idea which is coming. What is culture? The way we continuously define it, it's something intangible, right? But it's a lot of things which go ahead in forming culture. It is your organization structure, it is your policies, it's your processes, it's your people which come together and build that culture, right? You can argue whether it's from the top, whether it's from the bottom. The interesting aspect over here is with the advent of AI at work, which is looking at an inclusive ecosystem of building AI into a framework, it requires a level of maturity in organizations to first of all have avenues for capturing data, storing data, retrieving data, analyzing that data. That's your starting point, which is your master database management. But more importantly, it is about truly wanting to do something about it. And that's what, Ben, you touched upon, which is basically, do we have an intent to do something with that set of data? To a very large extent, when you have even, and this is the example we're talking about, learning management, think about it this way. In your own journeys, in your own career journeys, when you first got involved, right? How many of you sat through those training modules as HR professionals, building the content, buying the content, building content libraries, to the extent that now you can focus far more on more strategic elements and you can crawl the data to get the content as and when needed, on demand. You don't waste your time doing that, right? There's an evolution which will happen. Similarly, in organizations, what I generally see is a concept called talent continuum, where AI has a role to play, and this is where I was touching about the element of structure, is by and large, when we look at our own jobs, we are relegated to a CV at the end of the day, right? You move from one company to another company, that's just one-page CV, right? What about talent continuum? Because when you recruit and when you hire and when you interview in the company, they ask you about your previous experience, they ask you about your previous job, the skills that you acquired, but somehow, when you're in that company, it disappears, right? What about that continuum, that the extent that it's not an employee continuum, it's a talent continuum, and you're constantly adding to that and your life experiences, which will allow you, and if legislation was to open up, and that's the idea which was coming to my head right now, you could actually look at no longer needing any organizations like LinkedIn where you upload your CVs and you go through recruitment cycles, but you actually look at an element where all of us are interconnected through blockchain, where we can easily assess and stand up and say, you know, Ben is amazing at this stuff, and that carries weight to get your job in that other organization rather than you going actively and employing. That's the talent continuum where I see this helping, and that, in order to do that, requires a huge AI set up, not at a company level, but at an ecosystem level. That's the idea.
Yeah, it's your skill ID, right? It's more of a profile ID that you carry with you. Khalas, it's innate in you as a human being. So you don't need tangible data to be able to look at it, but it's there in the ecosystem, as Rohit is saying. Diversity and inclusion, right? It's also a buzzword that we've been hearing for the past few years. How will these machines be able to support us as organizations to really be diverse, inclusive, of different, I would say, qualitative perspective of people, and the quantums on the other side? So you as an organization today, yes, you want to continue with diversity and inclusion. will technology be hindering you as an organization? Will it be supporting you as an organization? How do you see that, Zainab?
As I said, always the technology is supporting us, providing the tools, supporting us in terms of finding the talent and putting also the talent in the right place. Even though mapping the competencies for the talent and do the right, actually, that mapping to the talent, making sure that this is the right choice for us. In other hand, we have to make sure that the identity for each talent is being actually maintained. The characteristics for them, it's even being developed in the way that serving them, achieving their own purpose, their own objective, and the company overall objective. Believe me, that is creating the passion for people and supporting strongly, indirectly, the company to achieving their overall objective. This is one of the things, I believe it's a key. Other part, which is actually, I want to add to the point for the culture, all the time we have to make sure the people, that each culture is supposed to have champion, right? The champion, they are actually leading the culture and building up the culture. Believe me, you cannot build the culture without champion for that culture. Sometimes you have to go to the market to fight people with a culture to bring them to your culture, to create for you a culture. So that's why you are actually finding a talent for your organization. And that's why actually you try to include them to your organization. So it's a kind of exchangeable relationship.
True. A dilemma many of us probably are living in these days with managing people. It's emotional intelligence that we as human beings have, right? When we are empathetic, we listen to people, our doors are open, versus artificial intelligence. Do you think HR professionals, HR managers, HR directors will become robots? Sajeev, EI versus AI.
Interesting part of that was whether the HR directors will become robots or robots will become the HR directors. I think there used to be a time when we used to think that, the AI cannot be substituted or cannot be built in. Now, the advanced levels of AI models, if you look at it, even it started building emotions. So we were having an offline chat in which we're talking about when a person one-to-one, when you are interacting, through the words I get the communication at the same time, maybe from your face, from your facial expression, from your eyes I get some communication. So this is human. But now the science has proven that how do I get that expression, or how do I get to know that, what is your intention from your face when you are talking something else? It is through something called micro expressions. And now micro expressions can be coded and it can be read also. So that means you cannot just relax and think that, AI is something which is only human and this is a place where nothing can be done by the AI. They are just behind us. Every step we do, the AI part of it is behind us because we are building it. Now the only thing is that there are certain areas, maybe in the emotional side also, there are few areas which we may be much ahead or we may have to be ahead. And I think when we have been talking about the future of work and looking at many literatures and reports, people are going to lose jobs and all those kinds of stuff. 70% of the jobs will be lost. And so one thing is very clear, people have a lot of time. That's very clear. So that means when you have more time, I think you will get more time to build relations. So maybe it could be that in the future is going to be more brighter than what we think, where we'll have more time to play with our children, we'll have more time to spend time with our friends and relatives, because most of the things are being done by these guys, you know, whoever, it is robots or AI or, you know, your avatars, which can do those jobs. So it is not going to be bad, you know. So it'll be much better. I would rather say we are actually creating a much better world. And maybe the kind of things what we are doing right now, which takes about 6 hours to do, how about completing that task in 1 hour and go and have fun for the next 5 hours?
Right.
So that's the way it should be looked upon.
True. The future, Generation X, is that the bulb is on again. So
these are the micro expressions they're catching on. Again, another scenario, right? Do you guys, when you're at work, have probably that one individual or 2 or 3 who you see them coming into your office or your cubicle and you go like, oh my God, not again? Do you have that?
Absolutely.
You have that moments, right? In HR,
yes.
If you're in HR, you have that moment. Otherwise, yeah. So, and you wish, if only I could have a digital avatar and this person, or somehow I could just miraculously. So interestingly, you're not reacting. The stimuli that you're reacting to is not what the individual will bring to you with the problem or the issues that the individual will have, is because of the workload that you probably have, which is added onto it. Where AI would come into play is to help you address the workload issue, allowing you to free up more time to have that human connections a bit more. And that's what adds to Steve's point as well. At the same time, what's going to be really interesting to see is this is not what we have right now, which is when you dial a number and you wish you could talk to a human being instead of, you know, going to put through this huge maze of pressing digits left, right, and center trying to reach a human being. That's still a very nascent level of interaction that we are at this stage. So let's not extrapolate that experience and say that's the same experience we're going to have 5 years or 10 years from now. The technology changes itself so often that technology is constantly competing with itself. And the experiences that we have today are not going to be relevant tomorrow. And the beauty is, and that's again coming back to his point, it is, by all effects, going to be brighter. It will create job losses it's the same way how technology created job losses a few decades ago for rudimentary jobs. And you acquire new skills, and then new set of jobs which are created. So that is a cycle which will continuously, I guess, remain. And that's the beauty of it, where we see AI fitting into this ecosystem of work going forward.
Ben.
You see my light bulb go off?
Yeah.
Is that what it
Your
was?
red bulb.
Yes, you do. Okay. So to bounce off that just a little bit, one of the things that we see in the data is that when automation's coming, when AI is coming, when any sort of automation has come in the past and it changes the work that's there, when that wave passes by, the jobs that are left behind have certain skills that are more in demand than others. So those things that are very repetitive, or those things that we don't look forward to, that we're like, oh goodness, not that person again. Right? Those tasks that all of you have, there's some task in your job where if you could push a button and never do it again, you would do it in a heartbeat because you hate it so much, okay? Whether it's managing your email or it's checking payroll errors or whatever else, it doesn't matter. What we see are skills like compassion, creativity, curiosity, critical thinking. Those are things that humans can do. Not only are we trained to do them, but we also do those innately, right? You can ask any 5-year-old and they are curious, they ask questions, they're willing to be creative. We sometimes lose a little bit of that as we grow up. We stop being so curious, but we shouldn't be. We should keep doing that. But the algorithms can't do those things. They can program an algorithm to approximate compassion. I feel sorry for you, right? But it's not the same thing as a person looking you in the eye and saying, hey, you know what? That's a really hard situation. I'm here for you if you need something. Because you've had that conversation, I'm sure, as an HR leader. That's part of our job, is having those tough conversations, supporting people in the moments when they need it most. And so that's one of the things we see is when these things do come, when they do change, when some of those jobs do go away, the work that is left behind for all of you, if you have high degrees of compassion and creativity and curiosity, those things that are very core human skills, that's how you're going to distinguish yourself from all the other things that algorithms can do, because they can't do those same things that we can, not nearly as easily.
Nice. Maan, I want to pick your brain a bit, right? So you come from a manufacturing industry. Will we reach a point where machines operate a machine?
Interesting to think about it. but you know, the great outcomes of this debate will come that in the future, machine cannot do it alone, human cannot do it alone. So this partnership that I spoke about earlier, it's a must, you know, if we change our perception and to gain the best out of this situation and live together and work closely together, that's something fantastic. Reaching to machine, working with machines, at the end of the day, human interaction, it's a must to have it wherever technology is going to take us. Because who's going to program this machine, the robot? Who's going to coach, motivate people? There is a human touch is part needed. You know, Airbus, they were talking about autopilot is more than enough to run a plane. But who is going to run this autopilot? So we need to think different of the skill set. This is why, you know, the future will reward more the knowledge-based company. There will be no more a process and procedure, policy-based company. Knowledge-based company will survive and make the best out of it in the future. You know, we need more or different competencies. We need to redefine our skill set or a competency level inside the organization. The need for more technical service, you know. Even the people, the young generation who enter to the market, they will impress you with the knowledge they started and the interest to have a young guy or a young child doing a presentation. Imagine how to satisfy him as an employee after 10 years when he joined the labor work. You know, we need to think of this one. The well-being part is very, very important things to get the best out of the people and create the right incubation for a future. Incubations.
We started with the Matrix movie. We're ending with the Avatar. What's next? Avengers. Yeah. So we, again, Generation X, lived on all these movies and dreams and thoughts that we always had when we were younger kids. In conclusion, who's going to conquer? Machines or humans? Together. Coexistence. Thank you very much. It was a lovely panel discussion. Any questions? Any interactions from our fellow audience? Please. Come closer.
First of all, thanks to everyone. It was one of the most refreshing panel discussions that I've ever heard. So thanks a lot.
By the way, we didn't prepare. Right?
Yeah. We're exchanging notes and we're making what we're going to say.
But I have a question. I think we were discussing a tussle between artificial intelligence and humans. But I think I just wanted to kind of raise the fact that artificial intelligence can also be biased. Very recently, I came across a research where artificial intelligence, because there are machine learning behind, and sometimes they interact with humans and learn from it. So our biases can creep into those artificial intelligence algorithms eventually. So they become, eventually, they might become just replicas of ourselves. So how do we ensure, since we are talking about diversity, inclusion, excluding biases, I really feel artificial intelligence can suffer from the same issues that humans do. My question to all of you as experts in this, how do we control for bias in eventually for artificial intelligence? So that was my question. Thanks a lot.
I'll start with that if you want to. So 2 things. Number one, I had a great conversation with the team at IBM about this when I was writing my book, which is called Artificial Intelligence for HR, so it's easy to remember. And the big thing that came away from that is they actually use diverse teams when they're building technology. You are much more likely to have bias exists and be programmed directly in if every single person building that technology looks the same, sounds the same, acts the same, comes from the same background. They're much more likely to have the same blind spots and biases. So having a very diverse team building that is the first step on the very front end. On the other end of that, though, auditing, checking, double checking, triple checking, making sure that the recommendations that come from that algorithm are unbiased to the degree they can be is great. There are great examples that I'm happy to share with you later about companies that have said, we're going to hand this decision off for pay to a gender-blind algorithm. And at the end of the day, it still isn't equitable across. It's not the same. Men and women don't get paid the same because of other factors that still creep in, as you mentioned. So it is a real thing. The good thing is that each one of you in the room here are the bias experts in the business, right? They don't go to people in marketing and say, hey, what does bias look like? No, they come to someone in HR. And we have the chance to be the voice for that, to raise the flag when we need to, and to point out when there's opportunities that we don't want to take a misstep. So really good question. Anybody else?
So we both were having this conversation outside, right? I'm going to do it and then you're going to add to it, right? Okay, so the interesting thing is, as human beings, we are all subject to certain stimuli, and that stimuli shapes us, which could be argued as nature, nurture, and what you may call it. The interesting point is that that's what is being coded in right now, so you can argue it's garbage in, garbage out to that extent. The interesting aspect of here is the element of choice, which is that free choice, which I will choose to accept, what I will choose to reject. That conditioning, which is what you were also referring to. If you look at a collective conscience, what we have, like you have a different belief, I have a different set of belief, but probably in this room, there's certain core elements that we all agree in. For example, cannibalism is wrong. Right? I'm sure we can all agree on that, right? Nail biting is okay, but cannibalism is wrong, right? To that extent, if that collective conscience is something which can be transferred into AI, which is individually being programmed separately by different organizations, different data sets being fed in, you would realize, and that's what you were talking about, which is the collective conscience would eliminate certain biases which you would have versus what I would have, and would arrive at a singularity where they would look at what is that right choice, which could possibly agree with a certain population. But again, that question of what's right, what is wrong is an eternal question, right? So.
Yeah, I think adding to what Rohit said, it depends on the objective of why you're going to use this AI. That's very important. And also the kind of source you are actually connecting with. Biases may happen when we are talking about human-related things where, you know, we may all have different opinions and different perspectives. And suppose in this hall, we are all going to do kind of programming which is going to be converted into machine learning and creating an algorithm. Maybe the people who are having the highest number of people who are going to have the same kind of opinion may have, that may be the kind of AI we're going to create. But there are other areas where credible scientific information based programs which are set, like in our organization, LIMOVERSE. What we do is that we do DNA-based programs. So we do DNA analysis. And once we get the DNA report, then we move it to AI and then come out with a highly personalized lifestyle modification recommendation, which tells you all about what kind of food works for you, what kind of exercise works for you, all those kinds of stuff. Now, there is no bias because it is the source is basically millions of data is being processed, and that's a scientific source. So it depends, you cannot say that every AI program may be biased, but it depends on objective and for what purpose you're going to use that. That's where it is.
Thank you, guys. Yes?
That's my DNA.
Can we get a microphone to the lady over there?
يعطيكم العافية, everybody. Thank you for a great event today, and for all of the speakers. You have great. Am I blocking the lights for you? Do you need me to move?
No.
So I have an enterprise solution background for 12 years, and I believe in technology. It's like if it's something digital, I'm on it. But I do believe that there are something that should not happen, especially when it comes to AI. So for example, if AI is continuously learning, and what I believe it will continuously learn is stereotyping. So for example, today, as a Khaliji, people are afraid to hire me in the UAE because they cannot fire me, or so they think, because there is the Emiratization law that applies to me. And that's unfortunate. So they would go like, oh, no, we'll keep Maryam aside because she's a threat. She could be a threat to her direct managers. She could be a threat for the company in terms of firing, for example. And that's what AI, and that's why I agree with him when he comes and says there is some sort of bias. There is some sort of stereotyping. And if it is the case where they go like, this Khaliji person is a great person to hire, we are getting paid less than our counter colleagues from different parts of the world. And these are facts. I think people from the HR part and payroll, they get to see that. Our package, let's say, is significantly less than our other people who are not from the Khalij areas because they think we are wealthy, so we don't need the money, even though that we are qualified. Yeah, I know, I heard that firsthand. Can you imagine? So how would AI surpass that? You said IBM had a great study on diversity. Did they actually study different parts of the Khalij and the MENA region collectively and had that kind of information applied?
I would like to answer part of that question and then give you off, Rohit. Look, it depends on what the organization's priorities are today, right? Priorities, big priorities, honestly. I was in the advisory business for the past 25 years. I've advised many clients on Emiratization and how these initiatives could be worked around. I'm on the other side of the table right now and I'm facing the same issue. And my team knows that empowering and engaging UAE nationals today in the workplace or the Khaliji nationals is not an easy job. You need to keep them motivated. You need to keep them part of the empowerment team of the organization. Give them the space to come up with the ideas. Believe in them as human beings, as educated people, as an adding value. I'm not going to call it tool, but as a resource, right? Again, we go back to think of him as a human, right? Even if it was stereotyped out there in the workplace or in the work market, we need to keep the blood flowing. Again, we need to be humans, looking at each other as humans and not labeling ourselves as an expat or as a UAE national or whatsoever, right? It's the skills that we were talking about, the skill ID that we've got, that we believe in each other, give them the chance to prove themselves. And even if they go wrong, support them and help them and nurture them and mentor them to reach where they are. Make them feel that they are the leaders of the future. Rohit.
Yeah. So discrimination of any form is wrong, first of all. So if you look at a compensation package, it needs to be for a job. It cannot be you would pay less for a gender, for a religion, or a nationality. That is absolutely wrong. And there's no conditions apply to this statement. Now, the AI part of this, and before I jump into that, is you mentioned something about the nationality clause, and I want to address that. Interestingly, if you look at world over how economies have developed, initially any country, take Singapore for example, relied heavily on expatriate workforce where you'd actually look at buying talent, then you'd have investing in building talent to the extent that now you have people who've grown from within. I would see this part of region would actually have the best amount of talent, ripe ground for talent to be grown from within, and you would actually see this region actually in another 10 years from now, possibly exporting talent outside. And I think that's the evolution that you would see happening. Probably I could be wrong, let's call it that, probably I could be right. But from an AI perspective, where this feeds in is how you code for compensation. For example, if you have an element of gender built in, you're doing it wrong. If you have an element of nationality built in, you're doing it wrong. You are feeding biases in, which ideally should not happen. So for example, a basic salary is linked to a job. It needs to be linked exactly to just the job, the way it's defined.
Regardless of the incumbent.
Correct. Regardless of the incumbent. And that's where, and then similarly, if you're looking at salary increases, if you're looking at cost of living adjustments, it needs to be linked to inflation, for example. If it's looking at merit increases, it needs to have a variable pay package built in. Again, we are, at that point of time, you can argue about the individual performance and all those aspects, but still, yet again, nationality does not come into the discussion at that point of time. Now, you can argue expat packages versus local packages and all those things. These are biases which have been created historically, which it's high time they move out. I tend to agree with you on that front, yes.
I think we're 10 minutes over time. In conclusion, human blood versus the fiber optic. Thank you very much, guys.